Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari and Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Mr. Pad Paramahansa Parudikacharya Ashtotir to the Sri Srimad's Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parudikacharya Ashtotir to the Sri Srimad's Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavabinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Okay, give me a second here. Narayanam Namaskritya Narang Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirihe. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremest human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Nashta prayesha badreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavatyuttama shloke bhakti bhavati naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering devotional service to the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil. And loving devotion to the Supreme Lord, who is glorified in transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 5th day of January 2020, in SanDiego, a reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are in Canto 4, The Creation of the Fourth Order, Chapter 21, Instructions by Maharaj Pitu. Text number 44. Gunayanang shiladanang kritagyam vidhashayang samvrinate nusampada pasidatam brahmakulam gavamcha janardhanaksanuchadascha mahiyam gunayanam shiladanam kritagyam vidhashayang samvrinate nusampadaha pasidatam brahmakulam gavamcha janardhanaksanuchadascha mahiyam gunayanam shiladanam kritagyam vidhashayang samvrinate nusampadaha pasidatam brahmakulam gavamcha janardhanaksanuchadascha mahiyam gunayanam shiladanam kritagyam vidhashayam samvrinate nusampadaha pasidatam brahmakulam gavamcha gunayanam shiladanam kritagyam vidhashayam samvrinate nusampadaha pasidatam brahmakulam gavamcha You want to try it? Go ahead. Vidhashayang samvrinate nusampadaha pasidatam brahmakulam gavamcha janardhanaksanuchadascha mahiyam Bhakti Nace. Gunayanam shiladanam kritagyam vidhashayam samvrinate nusampadaha pasidatam brahmakulam gavamcha janardhanaksanuchadascha mahiyam Gunayanam, one who has acquired all the good qualities. Shiladanam, one whose wealth is good behavior. Kritagyam, one who is grateful. Vridha ashrayam, one who takes shelter of the learned. Samvrinate, achieves. Anu, certainly. Sampadaha, all opulences. Prasidatam, be pleased upon. Brahmakulam, the Brahman class. Kavam, the cows. Cha, and. Janardhanaha, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sa, with. Anuchara, along with his devotee. Cha, and. Mayam, upon me. Translation. This is Maharaj Prithu speaking to the citizens. Whoever acquires the Brahminical qualifications, whose only wealth is good behavior, who is grateful, and who takes shelter of experienced persons, gets all the opulence of the world. I therefore wish that the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his associates be pleased with the Brahman class, with the cows, and with me. Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is worshipped with the prayer, Namo Brahmanya Devaya Go Brahmana Hitaya Cha. Thus it is clear that the Supreme Personality of Godhead respects and protects the Brahmins and Brahminical culture, as well as the cows. In other words, wherever there are Brahmins and Brahminical culture, there are cows and cow protection. In a society or a civilization in which there are no Brahmins or Brahminical culture, cows are treated as ordinary animals and slaughtered at the sacrifice of human civilization. The specific mention of the word Gavam by Prithu Maharaj is significant because the Lord is always associated with cows and his devotees. In pictures, Lord Krishna is always seen with cows and his associates, such as the cowherd boys and the gopis. Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, cannot be alone. Therefore, Prithu Maharaj said, Sa Anucharascha, indicating that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is always associated with his followers and devotees. A devotee acquires all the good qualities of the demigods. He is Gunayanam, the reservoir of all good qualities. His only asset is good behavior, and he is grateful. Gratitude for the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is one of the qualities of Brahmins and Vaishnavas. Everyone should feel grateful to the Supreme Personality of Godhead because he is maintaining all living entities and supplying all their necessities. As stated in the Vedas, the Katha Upanishad 2.2.13, Eko Bahunam Yovadadati Kaman. The Supreme One is supplying all necessities to the living entities. The living entity who is therefore grateful to the Supreme Personality of Godhead is certainly qualified with good characteristics. The word Vridhashriyam is very significant in this verse. Vridha refers to one who is advanced in knowledge. There are two kinds of old men, he who is advanced in years and he who is experienced in knowledge. One who is advanced in knowledge is actually Vridha, Jnana Vridha. One does not become Vridha simply by advancing in age. Vridhashriyam, a person who takes shelter of a superior person who is advanced in knowledge, can acquire all the good qualities of a Brahmin and be trained in good behavior. When one actually attains good qualities, becomes grateful for the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and takes shelter of a bona fide spiritual master, he is endowed with all opulence. Such a person is a Brahmin or Vaishnav. Therefore, Prithu Maharaj invokes the blessings and mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead with his associates, devotees, Vaishnavas, Brahmins, and cows. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmidatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So, the mission of human life is to reawaken our knowledge and our relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, with the source of everything. Without that mission, the human life is basically animal life. This is mentioned in Hitopadesh, where it says, Ahara nidra bhayamaitanancha samanyamaitat pashubhi samana dharmo hitesham adigo vishesho dharme nahina pashubhi samana. Understanding that dharma means the method and the techniques and everything involved with attaining our original, regaining our original relationship with God. This is mentioned in the Bhagavatam, 2nd chapter, 1st canto. Understanding that, then he says that, well, we share 4 things with the animals, basic things. Ahara nidra bhayamaitanam. Ahara is eating, sleeping, fearing, which means defense, some fight or flight means, and sex life. So, if that's all our life is centered around, then we're no better than the animals. That's what this verse says. What's the distinguishing quality of the human being is that he's involved with dharma. Dharma hitesham adigo vishesham. So, then the next question to ask is, well, how can we understand, or how can we get any knowledge about that which is beyond our ability to know through our senses, through our mind, through our intelligence? Because clearly, we can't see or contact Krishna with our ordinary senses in ordinary life. This is again and again described. Krishna himself says, Daivi Yesha Gunamahi Mama Maya Duratya. This Daivi Maya, this divine illusory energy of mine is very, very strong. You can't transcend it or go past it on your own efforts. And there he says, right in that verse, that those who surrender to me can easily cross beyond it. So this idea of surrendering or taking shelter of, they're very closely aligned. The word ashraya is here. Now ashraya is close to the word ashram. So ashram is a place for spiritual advancement. Ashram is a shelter where you can receive the knowledge that will allow you gradually to perceive the Supreme Lord at every step of life. That's what an ashram is. And that's what ashraya is, taking shelter. So the way in which Krishna reaches out to us to enable us to perceive him is most often, occasionally he appears himself, as he did 5,000 years ago, he did 500 years as the Lord Chaitanya. But mostly he has intercession. Prabhupada called it via media, transparent via media, meaning the spiritual master, the great sages. Here it's called vridha. Vridha normally means elderly people. But here it means those who are elderly by means of knowledge, by means of realized knowledge. It may well be that they're elderly, but it doesn't have to be. Just like there was Narada Muni, he was a child, or Prahlad was one of the greatest teachers. He was only 5 years old. So really it is steeped with real knowledge. So here in this whole passage, Prithu is praising the Brahmins and the Vaishnavas. And there's really kind of I don't want to say conflation, but there's a huge overlap. A real Brahmin must be a Vaishnav. And if one is a Vaishnav, when he's already a Brahmin. Because what are the qualities? Brahma janatiti brahmana. It's not just that you're born in a Brahmin family. This is a very important point. Janmana jayate shudra. When is everybody born a shudra? It means you're in ignorance. You're helpless. Right? Now you may be born in a good Brahmin family, and if they're real Brahmins, then you'll be taught Brahminical culture and gradually you become qualified. So there's a nice little progression here. Brahmana jayate shudra, sanskarad bhaved dvija, vedapatat bhaved vipra, brahma janati iti brahmana. So it starts out with we're born helpless. We really don't know anything. We're Shudras in that regard. But by samskar, purificatory processes, one becomes twice born. But only by knowing the Vedas does one become a pundit. And then when one actually knows Brahman, the Supreme Brahman, Krishna, one can be said to be a Brahman. This nice verse Prabhupada would quote. So here's some of the qualities. One who has acquired all the good qualities. Shila dhanam. This is very nice. Shila dhanam means having the wealth of good behavior. This is something you can perceive. What are the qualities of the Brahmin? You have to know. Shamo dhammas tabak shaucham. Mind controlling the senses, that's most obvious. If someone in the senses are out of control, you can easily see they're not a Brahmin. But also controlling the mind. They really go together. If you can't control the mind, then the senses are going to be out of control. Control of the senses, control of the mind. Austerity, cleanliness, knowledge. In other words, knowing the Shastras, but also Vigyan, Jnana Vigyan, realized knowledge, which is also evidenced by behavior and how they speak. And astikyam means religiousness, believing in God. You know, asti means it is. I mean, it's the word that means is. It means that yes, God exists. Nastik is the word for the atheist, right? Nastika means no, he doesn't exist. You know. Then there's the agnostics who don't know if he does or does not exist. They're in a much better position because they can be enlightened. But those who are firmly atheistic, and they go into the demon side, and they need some strong punishment. So these qualities are the wealth of the Brahmin. Prabhupada once said, it would tell us this little formula, austerity is the wealth of the Brahmins. Now austerity is evidenced by your behavior, right? Austerity means that you're choosing to take on things that are not so comfortable for the mind and body for higher reasons, for purification. I was just sharing this verse with a friend in the back there, one of my a friend's Janardhan Prabhu, whose name appears, well, it's Dravida Dasa, of course, but his name is in this verse. And this is a verse by Lord Rishabhdev. This is a verse that really is when you think of tapasya, this verse should come to mind because it really defines it, what the value is and the need for it. So he's speaking to his sons. Lord Rishabhdev, who's an incarnation of Krishna, was a great king. When he was not about to retire, go to the forest, perform austerities, as an example. And he's teaching his 100 sons, the foremost of whom, which is Bharat himself. And he had these wonderful 99 brothers who later helped him, and 9 of them became traveling sannyasis, and they have wonderful teachings in the 11th canto, which we can all take, study one day. So he's speaking to his sons, and he's just like a spiritual master. And so the first verse is hot chutney, There's a certain. So he says, "Nayam deho deha bhajang loke krishtan kaman adate vidbhujange tapo divyam putrakaya in sattam shuddhe jasmad brahma saukyam pranantam." So it's very interesting because in this verse he doesn't just talk about tapasya, but he talks about how tapasya culminates in the highest happiness, the highest pleasure. We're not just perform austerity for austerity's sake. We're not into what is it? What do the strict Catholics would do? They self-flagellation. We don't. There's no need for that. It means you beat yourself on the back; it bleeds. We don't do that. But all the austerities that we perform are aimed toward purification. So what he says in this verse, more or less, I put it into a little poem. I lost part of it, but you'll get it. Don't waste this precious human life, dear friend, by working hard for hoggish happiness. Through abnegation, worldly life transcend, and learn to taste divine love's endless bliss. So, in both halves of this verse, he talks about happiness. But one, he denigrates this material happiness, which is sense gratification, centered on eating, sleeping, like that. This is what the hogs enjoy. This is not where human beings should go. This is a tragic waste of human life, and we see it all around us. And because we see it all around us, we think this is normal. But it's not normal for actual human civilization. Vedic civilization was centered on the idea of liberation, of refining your existence, and that's what this verse is about. So the whole verse is really more rich than my little poem. So what he's saying is, he says, Nayam deho deha bhajang loke, one who is taking birth as a human being, should not work very hard for the same happiness, same quality of happiness that the hogs enjoy. Rather, tapo divyam. Now it's very important because tapasya, in general, gives you power. It can be done by the demons, as we've seen in many cases. Hiranyakashipu, most famously, performed severe austerity. What for? In order to be able to kill the one who killed his brother, Hari, right? And to become immortal. That's the first thing. The demons are always afraid of getting killed or dying. So you want to become immortal and be strong enough to kill Vishnu. He's deluded, but he performed extraordinary austerities until finally Brahma came down. You know the story. And he blessed him. He put some water on him from his kamandalu, which is very potent water. And he came out of the anthill that he was living in for millions of years, and he was so fulgent and bright, he was burning the universe, became so strong from this austerity. It's like Tantra. There's tantric practices, which are very austere and self-torturing in order to get the power to kill your enemy or do something. There's a whole discipline of that in India, dark arts. So that's austerity, but it's not divya, it's not divine. So he specifically says, tapo divyam, perform those austerities that will purify your existence. That was the last thing Hiranyakashipu was doing. Purify your existence. Of what? Of lust, anger, greed, all of these bad qualities. Remember, the real wealth is good behavior. So Hiranyakashipu didn't accept that. So, tapo divyam putraka, oh my dear sons, you should perform those austerities by which shuddhe yasmad, that sattvam shuddhi. Sattvam here means existence, shuddhi means purification. Okay, so I'm purifying my existence. Then what's going to be the result of that? By that purification, you will get the ability to enjoy Brahma Saukya, spiritual happiness, which doesn't end. This is the key difference between material and spiritual happiness. Material happiness is like fool's gold. It looks like something valuable, but actually it isn't. It draws you in. This is Maya's trick. We talk about con men, right? The whole advertising industry, they sell you something you don't need with money, you buy it with money you don't have, so you go into debt, right? In other words, and then you end up, what happened? What happened to the pleasure I was looking for? So that's material happiness. Maya Sukhaya, illusory happiness. So that's not what he's talking about. He says, you'll refine your existence and your consciousness, so you'll be able to perceive Brahman, the Supreme Brahman, Krishna, and then you become eligible for further and further purification of being on the platform of enjoying endless happiness in service to the Lord. That's what will come out in subsequent verses from Rishabdev. Now, going back to our verse here, he's talking about Brahminical qualifications. They get all the opulence of the world. Now, how is that? Because the Brahmins are traditionally very austere. I heard so many lectures from Prabhupada, and he's telling how the Brahmins' wealth is this austerity, and their ability to be independent. You see, the society is meant to be run by the Varnashram system. Varnashram system. And the Varnas include the Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, Shudras. So the Brahmins are the head of society. They're meant to guide society away, in such a way that people don't just become degraded through material pursuits and ignorance. So the Brahmins are meant to be full of knowledge. They're meant to be steeped in the Vedas. They're meant to be realized. They're meant to be Vaishnavas, because that's the end of all the Vedic knowledge. Vedasya sarva ahameva vedya. 15th chapter, 15th verse of the Bhagavad Gita. Of all the Vedas, I am to be known. In other words, if your so-called study of the Vedas is not leading you to Krishna, then you're making a mistake. You're not studying under the proper teacher. So that Brahminical culture is really Vaishnava culture. And so these qualities, and he mentions some of them. Kritagyam, one who is grateful. So grateful for what? Well, the more you realize the gifts that Krishna gives through his devotees, through the Brahmins, through the Vedas, through himself, the more grateful we should be to have such a wonderful master who cares about us. This is the whole problem in the material world here, in this so-called capitalist culture. Everyone's got masters they got to serve, but everyone knows they don't care about me. They just care how much work I can do to produce money for them, and then they discard you. This is the horrible ethos of the market economy. If you can sell your labor is valuable, then you can get a job and get minimum wage or whatever. The least they want to pay you, right? But as soon as you become superfluous, they can get it for easy. We'll move the whole factory over to Vietnam. Goodbye, you're all unemployed now in America, right? The whole thing is, in other words, it's all become very materialistic. It's very animalistic. But the Vedic culture is just the opposite. It's meant to open the heart so that you're concerned. Like Prahlad Maharaj, he was the king, right? He became the king when his father was killed. But his whole concern was with all these people who are suffering, right? He himself, he said, I have no problem. This is the essence of this enjoyment that Rishabdev is talking about. He says, my dear Lord, I'm not at all disturbed. I'm completely at peace. Because you're already across the ocean of the sea, the river of Vaitarani. There's a river between the material and spiritual world. So you're over there and I'm with you. Whenever I chant your glories, I'm completely with you in my consciousness, and I'm immerse my consciousness in an ocean of nectar. That's what he says. Tradviya gayana, by chanting your glories, singing them. Mahamrita magna chitta. Maha means the great nectar of Krishna consciousness. So what problem do I have? You know, but I am lamenting. Shoche, tato, vimokache, jasa indriyata, maya, sukaya, banamudvahito. I am lamenting for these poor fools and rascals. In other words, the heart opens and the empathy is there. Pada dukkha dukki. This is the quality of the devotee. Is that he actually feels pain to see others' pain. Otherwise, for his own, so he's with Krishna, you know, in the ocean of nectar. So this is the real nature of a real Brahmin. The knowledge is there, the practice is there, the behavior is there, and very grateful and very kind. And so this is how Krishna reaches out to us, through the Brahmins and the Vaishnavas. You can see them. What was Srila Prabhupada's great gift? The main gift that he's giving was himself, his own association. When he came to America, you know, it was like an ocean of ignorance. I mean, for him to come there with such a renunciation, leaving Vrindavan in his elder years, all his godbrothers, people retire there, they stay there, they don't go anywhere. You've made it, you know, you're Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. But he had this mission because of the tremendous desire of Lord Chaitanya that his name would be spread everywhere, out of that same ocean of compassion, and his spiritual master, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, who sacrificed his life, you know, to spreading Krishna consciousness, you know, for the benefit of everyone, and gave Prabhupada the mission. Now you spread it in the English languages, you know, outside. So he tried to do it in India for many years, but he felt he couldn't do it. So, amazingly, you know, empowered by Krishna, ready to undergo any austerity, he left India. He got on his freighter boat with no money. You know, he had a bag of rice or something with him that he was going to eat on the way. Didn't know what he would find. He thought he would eat potatoes or something. And had a tremendously difficult passage. Almost died. You know, a couple of heart attacks, seasickness. He'd never been on a boat like that before. He turned 69 on the trip. He celebrated Janmashtami. Of course, the captain was a Vaishnava. He brought his wife there. He cooked something. You know, gave a speech. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if he was, you know, I mean, he was. Yeah, they were sympathetic, you know. Anyway, so he made it, and then somehow or other, you know, he just was guided by Krishna to go here, go there, and was moved, you know, from unfavorable to more favorable positions. And then finally he found a few receptive ears, miraculously. Those who were ready to take Prabhupada's instruction into their heart and actually make the essential commitment to chant Hare Krishna. Now this is the most purifying thing. In other words, we're talking about purification, how the Brahmins are pure, and they can help others to become pure because they're full of knowledge. They're Vridha, right? Vidashram. They themselves are Vidashram, and they are full of knowledge. So Srila Prabhupada was the ideal Brahman Vaishnava. And by his association and influence, he was able to get people to chant, which purified their hearts more so that they were ready to hear the lesson and learn the philosophy. And a few became serious devotees, and the movement was off and running. Right now, my service is to... Every year I have this interlude where I put out the Vyasa Puja book. Have you ever seen the Srila Prabhupada's Vyasa Puja book? Full of, you know. Now there are many Vyasa Puja books, you know, they put out every... But this is the one going all the way back to 1969, which was the first one. So now, each year I have to try to reach out to the great ISKCON world, you know, to notify people, hey, try to send in your offering, your homage, by such and such a date. Now it's April 1st. So I have a certain access to a GBC site where I can see all the addresses of all the centers, you know. And each year I've been spending days keying in or copying the emails of places in Russia and all kinds of places in India. Most of them are in. And you know, this is a preaching center. This is a farm. This is actually a temple. You know, and each year is more and more. I'm spending days now getting all these addresses. So the thing is all over the world. And you find even in America, you may not notice, there are centers that are kind of just like gatherings, and then people become more serious, and then they want to be, you know, become a center, and then they become an official center, and they you know, they get privileged, but they distribute books. So it's growing. Krishna consciousness, because Krishna is all attractive. Wherever there are sincere devotees practicing, they become attractive, and they attractive to some people. Yeah, I'll try it. I'll look at the book. Yeah, come on. The prasadam is nice. Yeah, I'll come back. And just by the Brahmins, these are Brahmins that are contacting, Brahmin Vaishnavas, that are able to purify others. So what is the whole point here? Prithu is saying, I wish that the Lord and his associates would be pleased with the Brahmins, with the cows, and with me. And so the cow protection is a very important part. That's the name. Whenever you have genuine Brahmins, and you have the cows who are protecting the cows, because you have the milk and the milk products and the ghee, which is essential for sacrifice. And Krishna loves the cows. That's the main thing. So they have to be protected. Whenever you have massive cow slaughter, you have a big problem in society. And all kinds of trouble will come, just as is coming right now in this society. There seems to be so much prosperity. I mean, externally, the stock market is at a new high, and trillions of dollars are going here and there. But the people themselves are getting more and more depressed and more unhappy. The vast mass of people are in financial difficulty, don't know, what's going to happen next. And then there's climate change, and all the kids, young people, are like, "What are you doing, you oldsters? We have to live in this climate. You're going to be dead and gone, and then 20, 30, 40 years down the road, we'll only be 50 years old or 60 years old. How are we going to live in this society?" So by the millions they're coming out. It's madness. Nunam pramatta kurate vikarma yadindriya piteya apanoti. And the same Rishabdev says in these very important structures, 5th canto, 5th chapter. Check him out if you have access. He says, it's certainly a fact that those who are simply concerned with sense gratification, indriya priti, are mad. Because by that activity, they're sure to get another body, and that body is sure to give them all kinds of misery. So you're looking for pleasure, indriya priti, and you're getting more and more misery. That's the fact. Is that when all our attention is focused on sense gratification, you become most miserable, depressed. Because it's flickering, and it has a bad reaction. Either in this life, look at drugs, or even, video games. Video games is just like a drug now. I mean, they're not the video games that I Pac-Man is not. It's like completely immersive thing. It's bigger than movies. You get your other identity, and you stay on there for long. You're playing with some guy in Korea, and there's another guy here, and it's addictive. And then what happens when the games go off, and then you have to deal with just ordinary people? It's not a video game anymore. But you become accustomed to all of that excitement, and so ordinary human interaction. You see the problem. So that's all madness. So this self-control, the Brahmin class, and the cows, all of this is what Prithu is praising here. And they are the medium through which we can perceive Krishna. This is how Krishna reaches out. And this is why he favors them so much. Namo brahmanya devaya go brahmana hitayacha. I offer my obeisance unto you who are the well-wisher. Hitaya means the benefactor of the real Brahmins and the cows. So clearly, if we take shelter, means that we hear, we try to serve, we try to support genuine Brahmins and Vaishnavas, then Krishna will become pleased with us and give us the ability and the inspiration to receive the knowledge and to take up the practice. And as soon as we are on the road taking up the practice, then we get more direct connection with Krishna, especially through the holy name. Those who are serious about chanting the holy name, where do you get that seriousness from? Where do you get that inspiration? What's happening? Okay. So that comes from associating with the faithful, with the serious. In other words, you say, how do I increase my faith? Associate with the faithful. How did people originally get their faith in this movement? Because Prabhupada was with them. He was so sure. Whatever he said with tremendous conviction. So people could believe that God that I knew as an old man or some vague idea in my religion that I was, That God is a blue boy with a flute, young, all attractive. How could you have faith in that? Because Prabhupada was absolutely certain, and he by realization, and he invoked the whole parampara, beginning with Brahma, Krishna and Brahma, Narada, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, all of this whole, and we're saying, well, it can't be. You're going up against all of these towering intellects and realized souls. You see what I'm saying? That's where your faith comes. Well, at least enough faith to try to process. And as soon as you try chanting, then there's something happens. You get some direct experience. It may be very, limited at first, but then you get drawn into some big kirtan and say, whoa, where did that come from? In other words, it's obviously not sense gratification. You're not, it's something new. And that, just a little exposure to that, just eons of bad karma and all kinds of doubts and things can be blown away by the influence and the effect of pure devotee like Srila Prabhupada. So that's why he's praising now the Brahminical qualification, and that's why Krishna favors him so much, because they're his representatives. They're the ones through whom he speaks, and through their mouths he eats. That's also another verse. He's much more pleased, right, when the prasadam is offered to his great devotees than when he himself eats it. Right? We offer food to Krishna, very nice. But he's much more pleased when his great devotees and Brahmins are nicely fed, with prasadam. That's why they go Govardhan Puja, right? That was the big puja. He says, bring all the food, offer it to Govardhan Hill. Aniyor, right? There's more and more, right? He manifests as the big hill, and he ate everything. So everyone was satisfied. So this is the way to really advance, is to find Krishna's, true representative, and take shelter, meaning to find ways to serve them and hear from them, and I don't want to say imitate, but do what they do. Okay, they're doing this. Let me also try it. This is a sincerest form of flattery, is imitation, right? So, Srila Prabhupada, that's what acharya means. Acharya has these three meanings. First is someone who knows the Vedic instructions, Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, CC, all the books we have, Srila Prabhupada gave, who really knows that, who behaves, that's where the acharya comes, who behaves according to these scriptures, and who takes the trouble to teach them. Three things. That's the acharya. And you can see how that's essentially how this movement spreads. Srila Prabhupada, he through his books, through his lectures, now this movie is having such an influence. People become devotees, or very interested by seeing this movie that Yadav and Shaka made, Hare Krishna, the man, the latest one, the full-length movie. I'm just reading about that. So that's all Prabhupada's influence through the media, different media, and the most important media are his sincere devotees. The sincere devotees of Krishna, who are inspired by his representatives, who take shelter, take initiation, and become agents of his in this world. That gives him the greatest pleasure. As he says in the Gita, there'll never be one more dear to me than one who spreads my message. Who takes the trouble to try to meet others and bring them along. Because if you really do it out of kindness, out of empathy, people feel that. In a world where everything is faked, you go to a restaurant or something, there's all these waiters, say, oh, how can we serve you? What would you like? So that same mood of, yes, that'll be my service, but they're not serving you. They're trying to get a bigger tip. If you don't tip them enough, then next time you go to the restaurant, watch out what's in the food, right? Where is there the genuine service? Well, you find it, the mother and the child. That's the purest form. The child is helpless, the mother serves it. But that's a shadow. Although the most accurate one, of the genuine concern of realized souls for the suffering humanity. But you can see the difference. The great care and concern, that great soul. Prabhupada would praise Jesus Christ for preaching, even though it endangered his life, because he knew people needed. This was the only hope if they could become God conscious. Time and place and circumstance. But he would be prayer. But he would compare with, who was it, Vasudeva Dutt, who said, "My dear Lord, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, my heart is breaking to see all these people suffering, their sinful reactions. Just put them all on me. And let me suffer here forever from the sinful reactions, and they'll all go back to God." Lord Chaitanya, tears come. He gave him a big hug. Said, "No, they will be delivered, but you won't have to suffer their sinful reactions." So this is the mood of a Vaishnava. You can see how attractive that is. Where people actually care for you, and want to give you, what is this? The greatest treasure. His Shila Dhanam. The Prema Dhana. Prema Dhana means the treasure of love of God. This is Lord Chaitanya is giving it freely. Therefore he is Vadanyaya. Vadanya means munificent. There's a little difference between munificent and magnanimous. Prabhupada tends to interchange them. Magnanimous is very important too, but you can think of it, magnanimous means forgiving, and munificent means giving. You see? Both are important. So, Namo Mahavadanyaya. I offer my obeisance to the most munificent avatar. That's what Mahavadanyaya means. Krishna Prema Padayate, because he's giving love for Krishna. It's such a treasure. It's way beyond just liberation. It includes liberation, just as an insignificant byproduct. Lord Chaitanya didn't specifically mention that as something that he didn't care about. Nadanang, nadanang, nasundim. Why am I chanting your name? Why am I praying? What do we pray for? It's so important to know. What should I believe in God, then what should I pray for? So he's teaching, nadanang, nadanang, nasundadim, kavitang, vajagadishika. Mama janmani janmanishade, bhavata bhakti dahoitiki. These are the things people usually pray for. I made a little poem. Wealth and women, followers, the fruits of mundane piety, liberation from this world of limitless anxiety. For me, O Lord, these common goals have not the slightest worth. Let me serve you purely now and in each future birth. This is the real treasure. Prema dhan. You see? This is the way to prema dhan. To serve Krishna without any material motivation. This is the kind of, in any business, there's like a mission statement. And this is what we're all about, to sell more of this or whatever, But this, our mission statement, our central verse, which pervades all of ISKCON, all of Gaudiya Vaishnava theology, is written by Rupa Goswami in the beginning of his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, verse 11 of the first chapter. He said, Anyabhilashita shunyam jnana karma dhanavratam anukulena krishna anushilanam bhaktir uttama. This is the essence. Anything else is called kaitava dharma. Is bhakti diluted by or perverted by material motivation. So he's saying, here's the standard that he's going to explain in his wonderful book called the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. The how-to for Krishna consciousness, the means and the goal. What you get, the different rasas, and here's how to get it. So he's saying, here's what it isn't. Anya abhilashita shunyam, devoid of other aspirations or desires. Categorized, jnana karma anavritam. Avritam means covered or diluted by the desire for liberation. That's where the jnana comes in. Trying to find out, what is real. Neti, what is really the Brahman, And karma, of course, ordinary karmic activities. And adi, anything else you come up with that's materially motivated. Not covered by them. What is it? Anukulyena Krishna anushilanam. Here's the word shila again. Behavior or activity which is favorable to Krishna. Not just that you're conscious of Krishna, like Kamsa. That wasn't favorable. That's not bhakti. Although he eventually got liberation. But that's consciously favorable for Krishna's desire. That's what Arjuna came to. Right? He didn't want to fight. He had all kinds of apparently Vedic reasons not to fight. I'm going to kill all these men. The women will be unprotected. The world will be overrun with Varna Sankara, and I'll be the cause. I'll get sinful reactions. I'll cause people to get sick. Forget it. Right? But deep down he understood, wait a minute. Krishna's sitting right on the cart, the chariot here. He wants me to fight. So he ended up in a position of paralysis. And kind of tears are coming. He drops his bow, sits down. He's ready to stand. It's time to stand up and shoot the arrows. But he sits down. And so but he surrenders to Krishna as a guru, as Krishna's the guru, and he's the shishya or disciple. And he says, I'm, confused about what real Dharma is. We're back to Dharma again. But now I'm surrendering to you. I'm Prapanna. Please instruct me for certain what is the best thing. How can I achieve real Dharma? Shreya. How can I achieve my ultimate good? See, we have to all come to that point. They come to throw up our hands. I don't know. I have no idea how to act and what to do for my own ultimate benefit. I don't even know who I am. I'm thinking I'm this body, I'm Indian, I'm American, I'm Chinese, black, white, Japanese. No. That doesn't make any sense. So who am I? This is Sanatana Goswami. Who am I? And sadhana and sadhya. What is the goal, sadhya, and what is the practice to get there? This is the question we should ask. And so who to ask of? The Brahmins and Vaishnavas, the Vriddhas, those who are mature in knowledge and realization. And so here he's praying for that the Lord will be pleased with the Brahmins and the cows and with me. So we can also adopt this whole section. We should study this section of Pritu's instructions, and it'll help us. And basically it should give us respect for genuine Brahmins and Vaishnavas, and we should aspire for their association. And the wonderful thing is, there's a downside to media, which can completely corrupt you, obviously, but there's also a great upside, is that if you push the right buttons, because you're inspired in the right way, you can, be in Vrindavan for Mangalarti. Or you can read the books. That's another medium. The most important medium is Srila Prabhupada's books. And you immediately are associating with the Vriddha, though he who is mature in knowledge, and the Brahmins and everything comes out. That's why we read every morning. Okay, I'll stop haranguing you. Any questions, comments we may have? Yes, Dharmaraj?
Thank you for that very rich and enlightening class, Prabhu. We're so grateful. Exactly how is the pleasure one feels in a kirtan, for example, or chanting, supporting evidence for the existence of God? Because one could say that they feel happiness at a drum circle or something like that. So,
well, there's a context. In other words, it depends on what's going on in that kirtan, who's leading, and what the purity of the chanting, And so, it's true that one may simply get off on the drumming. That's a big thing. That's why it's so nice and important to have a good drummer. We were able to have that, even though our beloved Brajamohan had left the day before. We just went out on New Year's Eve. You missed. You were there. But we had Vrindavan came out. He's even more skilled. And amazing, I started leading, the old man, And as usual, I overdid it, and I got kind of tired. And people were getting into it, But when he took over, it was a whole different ball game, Because it was nearer to midnight, and so people were more fired up, in many ways. But you're right, a lot of the attraction, I think, was just the fact that we had a good beat, I mean, I used to live on the Lower East Side, a block from Tompkins Square Park, in '68. And I would go over there, and there was always a drumming going on. It's mentioned in the Lilamrita. The Puerto Ricans, and we'd get together. They'd drum all day, And there would be a crowd. Some people would be dancing. There'd be some flutists. I was one of them sometimes. And so that's attractive on one level. But when we're actually devotees of a sort, we may not be pure devotees, but we know what it's all about, at least theoretically. And we try to chant with concentration, and we listen to the holy name, maybe in front of the deities, so much of our chanting. Then it's not just the rhythm, It's more than that. There's an experience to be had just by hearing and chanting with concentration, even though you may know very little about Krishna. But if you're able and willing to focus, because you have a certain amount of free will about what you focus on, right? And you hear the name, and you chant, and you see the devotees, there's something else going on there. Now, you might not say that this is proof of the existence of God, but it's enough. It should be enough, and it often is enough for you to become more curious, more inquisitive about the science behind it. That's why Prabhupada would always have a kirtan, and then the talk, and then another kirtan, and then the feast. This is the program. He started from the beginning, and it's still going on. Because if you just walk in the door out of curiosity, and you get caught up in the kirtan, you'll become interested. Well, what was that? That's far out. Who are these people? And it's another thing. You see devotees who are experiencing even more than you are. Well, who are they? What's going on here? So you become enough curious to listen to the talk. Well, I didn't understand half of that, but they have these books. All right, let me take a book. And then there's a kirtan afterward, which, and then of course the feast, which hopefully brings you back. So it's a science. You're really ignorant. You don't know, but because you're one of the very rare few people. I mean, just think of how many people there are in this city. What to speak of who are willing to spend some time with the Hare Krishnas and the holy name. Therefore, Krishna is, giving you as much as he can to draw you back and draw you in to become attracted. So it's in your own mind, from a person who's first there, it's not going to be proof of much of anything, but it's going to be intriguing and hopefully a exciting enough experience that they'll open up their mind to understand the philosophy behind it. And so that's why it's so important to search out, devotees who are really able to relish Krishna consciousness, because they're not so different than me. I just reading about like Jayananda. He's a mythical, become a kind of a not a mythical figure, but someone who is really respected in great ways. And his so much of what he is preaching was just his own enthusiasm for performing any kind of service, especially kirtan. He really loved kirtan, really loved Krishna consciousness. So that's intriguing. It's attractive. It's Krishna. He's attracting you because you don't find that outside. Here's someone who has virtually nothing, who's like taking out the trash, and he's singing while he does it. He looks very blissful. Or he's sitting underneath a car, fixing it and preaching. There's that pastime, And so there's something unique about that. It's all a complex of things, that can give you the experience of the presence of the Spirit, and eventually you find out why, And this is Lord Chaitanya's movement. Lord Chaitanya, is chanting and dancing and feasting and some philosophy, and that's the whole program. And we should never get away from that. That's the beating heart of this movement. Is it chanting and dancing and prasadam and a little philosophy. Hare Krishna. Anyone else? I'm sorry, I went over time as usual. Oh my God. Okay. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Hare Bol.